And when you unravel this in the middle of this controversy, David and I ask everyone to go, I don't have the book, by Walter Isaacson. As I'm being pummeled, Walter Isaacson writes a book called The Innovators of the Digital Revolution. I really want everyone to go read that book. Every page is all white people. And I've never played the race card of my life. Everyone in there who invented the digital is white. He leaves out the story about email. And he is your white liberal who started the Aspen Institute, etc. So what the invention of email really reveals is not just about me. The facts about inventing email is black and white. The fact that I've had to fight so hard, the fact that Wikipedia destroyed my entire page, they blocked it. In fact, the senior Wikipedia editor wrote to me, he goes, Shiva, I want to write to you. I have the email. And he said, I'm a senior editor. I wanted to give you appropriate credit. He goes, I was called all sorts of vile names. He goes, your article on email is as controversial as the abortion article and as the Second Amendment. I also want to let people know that we invite everyone to come to an orientation. Every Thursdays at 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. I host an open house. Lots of great people show up. You have a lot of chance to meet people from all over the world. Every Thursdays, we do a open house. Anyone's invited. You can just RSVP at vashiva.com/orientation. We have people all over the world come in and we discuss how we actually build a movement to end the nonsense that's going on. If you think, oh my God, the world's going to hell, I'm so confused, you'll get very inspired at seeing there's a lot of people who are coming to our movement for truth, freedom, and health. Please join us there. And why is this so controversial? I'll tell you why. Because when I was at MIT, David, I was on the front page for inventing many things. I was a model minority. But see, I was in the umbrella, the bastion of MIT. It's great. You can invent anything. In fact, you can drop out of Harvard and you'll be called an inventor of DOS or Facebook. If you invent something outside of the bounds of the military-industrial academic complex in Newark, New Jersey, think about the things I have going against me. 14-year-old, dark-skinned Indian guy in Newark, New Jersey, doing it before I came to MIT. By the way, my story is very similar to Philo Farnsworth. He didn't have to deal with the color issue, who actually invented TV in a small farm in Franklin, Idaho. It took him 60 years to get credit for that. The bigger story is a caste that states that you have to go to MIT or Silicon Valley and then you get branded as an inventor, right? The invention of email took place in a triangle, but not of the military-industrial academic complex, in a triangle of a loving family, public school system where the teachers fought for me, and a mentor. And what we've created is this illusion that all great innovations must come from Silicon Valley or must come from someone who goes to Harvard and then can be dweeby-like looking and drop out. That's cool. But it surely should not occur in an environment where people were doing it for the love of it. When I did the invention of email, IBM came in, HP came in. When I put all my documents in the Library of Congress, everyone had access to it. Am I saying someone would not have created email? Absolutely not, because computing and office automation were coming together. But I was the first to do it. And the conflation that took place of taking simple text messaging and elevating that to email is absolutely a fraud. I've never claimed to be the inventor of electronic messaging, which is a simple exchange of text messages between electronic devices, but I did invent email, the system. And there is no controversy. Kevin Ryan, who was a former owner and head of Business Insider, pretty smart guy, he looked at us and he goes, Shiva, this is what's fascinating is how they created a controversy. Now, maybe if I were a blonde-haired white kid with blue eyes, I'd be on every stamp. No one questions whether Mozart wrote those symphonies. And that's what a deeper issue is. Why did Walter Isaacson leave out the entire section in 2014 about email? And why is it all white people?
Yeah, it's fascinating. And I was reading a bunch of stuff, but saw your Wikipedia page. And this is just one of many controversies that they put in. It's fast. I mean, there's a lot to break down there, but it's an interesting, I think it's going to help people understand your steadfast pursuit of what you believe to be the principled position in stuff, because most people wouldn't do what you've done. But before we even get into the current, let's call it controversies, the revelations, your academic, your PhD, it's not in something irrelevant to the subject of the time, that being COVID. What's your PhD in, and how does it work its way into your understanding of certain claims that you've made in the context of COVID?
Yeah, so when I remember, I always wanted to do medicine, David, because I saw my grandmother in this village. There's an ancient system of Indian medicine called Siddha, S-I-D-D-H-A, which has existed, some people talk about, for 5,000 years. It involves the right medicine for the right person at the right time, which we today call precision and personalized medicine. But my grandmother would look at your face. In the Indian systems, everything's interconnected. So based on observing your face, she would figure out the constitution of your body. Two people may have the exact same disease, but based on your constitution, she would give you different mixtures of herbs versus another. So when I was working in that medical school, the invention of email was actually in some ways an accident. My pursuit was, I was wanting to apply math and computing to understand why babies were dying in their sleep, what we call sudden infant death today. Okay? SIDS. In fact, that small medical school had some access to some of the best 24-hour sleep data. So I was looking at sleep patterns, and I knew when the baby stopped breathing, and I was doing these very interesting statistical modeling correlations. In fact, I published a paper before I came to MIT and one of the big biomedical conferences.
Let me stop you there, actually. When you're studying SIDS at the time, the data that you're getting is coming from children or newborns that were hospitalized?
Yes, hospitalized.
So that they're under constant monitoring. It's not like SIDS.
They're monitoring, yeah. So because what happens is, as you know, with SIDS, some people may know that when a baby goes into sleep, if you shake it, you can wake it up, right? So if they knew a baby was in that mode, they were monitoring it. So they had all the sleep patterns. By the way, babies have 6 states of sleep. Adults have 5. So we knew the actual sleep histogram, and then we actually knew when it had an apnea. So the idea was particular sleep patterns causing the apnea. Anyways, it's a piece of research I did, and today, sudden death has become a big thing in the media. Anyway, but when I came to MIT, I wanted to do medicine, but I was really, really upset that medicine was just looking at if this, give this, right? Very reactionary. So I ended up doing my engineering degree was in electrical engineering and computer science. In fact, I worked at Hewlett Packard and I built one of the first cardiology systems. Again, always mixing computing with medicine. Then did my master's work in mechanical engineering and in understanding wave propagation. And I also got a degree in design from the Media Lab. After I did that, in the middle of my PhD program in 1993, I was analyzing all different patterns, what you would today call AI. And I was developing a system that could look at speech patterns, face patterns, and I was creating the system documents, and the White House ran a competition to automatically analyze email. If you remember, email prior to 1993 was an office application. That's why a lot of people under the age of 40 don't understand this. After 1993, with the advent of the web, email became a consumer application. If you in 1993 ask how many people had an email account, maybe 2 people. After 1993, 1,000 people out of a room of, let's say, 2,000. So there was a competition the White House ran to see if they could automatically analyze President Clinton's email and categorize it. I ended up winning that, left MIT, started a company, which we grew. Anyway, 2003, something important occurs in biology. The fascinating development was taking place in biology. The Human Genome Project had just concluded. It had started in 1993. It concluded in 2003. Now, what was profound about it was in 1993, the thesis was that for this disease, there's this gene, right? If you have this disease, if you have blue eyes, you must have this gene. So every feature that we have in our body must be denoted to a particular gene. So the goal was, could we map out all these genes? Could we enumerate all the genes? And the issue is, how long would it take? We knew in 1993, a worm had 20,000 genes, right? A little lowly worm. So what do you think biologists thought how many genes we had in 1993? If a worm had 20,000 genes, take a guess.
Well, I would say that they're going to say, like, I don't know, 2 billion genes, but I would ask why they would think that the genes would scale up based on the size of the animal, where it should not necessarily do that. But I don't know anything from anything.
Yeah. So you were actually smarter than most of them. Most of those guys.
I would say that humans might have fewer. I don't know. I would say fewer just to be ironic, but I'd say about the same amount.
Yeah. So what they thought was, they didn't do a direct scaling. They said, well, we must have about 1 million genes. 1990. So they start doing the gene hunting. 1994, they're not finding 1 million. They revise their estimates to 500,000. Then they revise it to 100,000, 30,000. By the time the Genome Project ends, we only have 20,000 genes. Okay. The same number as a worm. So what does this tell you about people's thinking? You see, biologists are in their little cubby holes doing little experiments in a very siloed way. They didn't want to take a system science approach. Now, what system science says, David, is that the complexity of a system is not a function of the number of parts, but the number of interconnections. This is quite profound.